Hey everybody, welcome to my first Facebook Live video. It's Joanne Rogers. I'm with Design with Joe, and I've been designing with you in mind. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Central Alberta, Canada, and I've been designing with you in mind since 1999. This is my first Facebook Live. I'm having a few little technical glitches right now in that I don't know whether my project is going to be upside down or backwards. So be sure to let me know. Maybe jump on and give me a comment and let me know that you can hear me first of all and see me, and also maybe let me know where you're from so that I can see where you're from and I can maybe give you a shout out and a wave. So I'm going to turn the camera. We are going to be working with Christmas, and I want to talk a little bit about why we're working with Christmas already, because it's July 26th. Here it's about 22 degrees Celsius and might be even warmer where you are. So it seems like a funny thing to be talking about, but I had my Christmas in July class last night and I've been in the mood. I've posted a couple things on my blog at www.designwithjoe.ca, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the paper that's in the catalog, the Under the Mistletoe paper. Okay, so I'm going to point you down and let's see if this works and it's not upside down. So this is the Stylish Christmas, and it is a great set. It's the distinctive set, and what first attracted me to it was the poinsettia, as closely followed by the swirl, and then after that were the leaves and the beautiful font. So everything about this set I really like. So I'm going to use that today. And what we're also going to use, the Under the Mistletoe paper. So I want to pull that in so that you can see it. So this paper is beautiful. There are 6 designs and they're double-sided, and you can tell which one I like the most because I only have this much paper left on this one, but it's got the poinsettias in it in my favorite Christmas colors. So there's Old Olive and there's Real Red and Whisper White, and then they've also pulled in the new Shaded Spruce on a piece that has reindeer on it. This one's very rustic. It's got the acorns, or the pine cones rather, on it, and some berries and some pine boughs. This one is Shaded Spruce with some Old Olive and Whisper White, also with poinsettias on it. And this is the piece we're going to use today. And then we have some baubles. So we've got Night of Navy in here too. So Night of Navy is a really classic color that I like. And the last piece has some bells on it and some pine cones. I'm going to turn them over so you can see the back side. So we've got some plaids. Here's another plaid here. So 3 different plaids, and then some dots, and then a very pretty Real Red one. So that's what comes in that set. So there's all kinds of stuff for Christmas. So I'm going to put that aside. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you what we're going to make for our project. So this was the first one that I made, and this project here is using that paper with the poinsettias on it in the Real Red and the Old Olive, my favorite colors. And we have the Season's Greeting from the set that I've embossed along the bottom. And we have our shiny gold brads here, and then on a piece of vellum with an overlay. And so when you open it up is when you get a little bit more color. You see the poinsettia that I've stamped in the Real Red, and then our greeting in the Old Olive as well. And then I did a second version, and my second version I used the copper. So we've got copper embossing powder and the copper brads with it. We're going to use the same paper on today's project, the Shaded Spruce one. And when you open up this one, it opens up a little bit differently. I have embossed the poinsettia in the copper. And I don't know if you can tell through the camera, but when you emboss these distinctive stamps, they emboss really cool. There's almost little pitted marks in it, which are really quite fun. And then I've got the Old Olive leaves and the words. So on the measurements that I have for you, so I have a piece of our Shaded Spruce that is 4 1/4 by 11. Piece of Whisper White that is 4 by 5 1/4. A piece of my designer paper, and I've got the Shaded Spruce one with the Old Olive and the Whisper White, and that is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And then my last piece is vellum, and it's vellum cardstock, so it's got a little bit of heavier weight to it. and it is 3 3/4 by 5. And then for the inside, I have a piece of old olive that is 4 by 5 1/4, and a piece of Whisper White that is 4 1/8 by 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So I'm just going to put that aside, and we're going to start with our embossing. So when we emboss, I'm going to emboss onto vellum. And when we're embossing on vellum, this is just a little bit more staticky than what it is on regular cardstock. So I'm going to use my embossing buddy. And my it's an old one that I have, and I've gotten lots of use out of it. It's an old packaging, you can see. And so when I'm using it, instead of pouncing it all over, I just give it a very soft little swipe across my cardstock. And what it does, it stops your embossing powder from running outside of your image or your words, and so you don't get some of those little dots showing up. So I've done that, and I want my words to be nice and straight. So I'm going to pull in my Stamparatus, and I've set up my Stamparatus so that I have my Season's Greetings here, and I am going to put my vellum. I've created a little bit of a template for myself. I'm going to butt this right up to the corner, and I've created a little bit of a template with my pencil. I'm going to put my paper inside there, and I'm going to put my magnet on so it doesn't move, and then I'm just going to ink up my Season's Greetings with Versamark. So that's probably out of the camera, but I will put that on there, and I'm going to stamp it straight down. And I'm going to just rub my finger a little bit on there. You don't have to press super hard with these ones, and it works really well. I'm going to lift up. I'm going to take off my magnet, and now I'm going to put some embossing powder on there. I'm done with my Stamparatus. I put my embossing powder into a plastic container like this, and then I just give myself a little bit of embossing powder on top. And if for some reason the embossing buddy didn't get everywhere and you do have a few little dots, I keep a dry paintbrush, and my dry paintbrush, I just whisk away some of those little dots that might still be there, and then I am good to go. And there's one right there. So I'm going to put that aside. Now, I didn't think that you really wanted to listen to my heat tool, but I want to show you something on the heat tool. So on the heat tool that we have, it actually has 2 different settings, and I'm hoping that you can see it from there. It has a 0, 1, and a 2, and a 2 is highest setting, and that's going to do all of your cardstock and your papers. A 1 is what we want to use for vellum, because if you're going to use high heat when you're pointing at your vellum, it can warp your paper. So I'm going to use it on 1, and I'm going to get a nice smooth image, and my paper is not going to warp. So by the magic of video, I have that done for you. So there's my Season's Greetings in my silver embossing powder this time. So I'm going to put that one aside. We are done with that. And I'm going to do the inside of my card. So here's where I'm going to pull in my stamps. I've got my poinsettia, I've got my leaves, and I've got my words, and I've got some old olive. I'm going to ink up my poinsettia with my Versamark and stamp it down. And same thing for that. You always want to hold it with Versamark because it's got some real stick to it. And I'm just going to put embossing powder on this as well. And I wasn't so worried about using my embossing buddy here because it's not, the Whisper White is not as staticky. I could have. I give it a nice little flick on the back to get rid of anything. But as well, I've already embossed that one so you don't have to listen. So there's my poinsettia. And I'm going to use my old olive, and I'm going to put in my words. So this is the greeting on the inside, and I'm just going to put that straight down. Old olive. I just love the way that they've mixed the brush lettering, which most of you know I really enjoy, with the more straight up and down writing. And then my leaves. So I'm just going to put a few leaves on here coming off the side. And one of the really nice things about the distinctive stamps is that you get 2 levels of impression, and I think you can probably see how some is a little bit darker than other there. So there's our piece that's dried already. So I'm just going to adhere that onto my card with my snail. And I'm going to pull that in. Here is what you don't want to do when you're doing this at home. So I had a little bit of ink on my grid paper. And so when it's on my grid paper here, it's transferred over into my white. So I am just going to do a little bit of fixing. So I'm going to take my leaves and I'm going to put my leaves over top of here so that it covers it up a little bit so that it looks like I intentionally did that. So that's the inside of my card. I'm going to fold that. And I have already glued down my piece of Whisper White, but I want to give you some hints on using the vellum as well. So on these other ones, we used the brads. So I've got the copper brads and I've got the gold brads. Send me a comment. Do you love brads? Do you still use your brads and your eyelets? I'd love to see. These are the new ones that Stampin' Up! Came out with. And there's 3 different sizes in here. This is the metallics set. It has the really bright copper that you see here. It's got the bright gold and it has silver. And this is the smallest. They're 4 millimeters. And then there's 6 millimeter ones that are very plain. The ones that are sort of the coolest are the largest ones, and they look like a little button. And I don't know if you can tell that from through the screen or not, but there's 2 little holes in there, so they'll look like a button on your paper. So those are a fun little addition to your card making. So in order to get those things in nice 4 corners like this, I use my grid paper. So I'm going to take my vellum. I'm going to avoid that little bit of green. That's probably still a little bit wet. And I can see my grid lines through the vellum. And hopefully you can see that as well. And I'm going to pick up a pencil. And I am just going to put a tiny little pencil dot in each of those 4 corners where my square met. And then, instead of doing brads on this one, but if I were doing brads, I would just punch my holes right over where that pencil mark is. But I'm going to take mine and I'm going to attach it with glue dot. So I'm going to take it right over top of the glue dot, right where that pencil mark is, and lift it off. And it's a little sticky. I'm going to do this guy too, right over top and lift it off. Whoops, that one didn't attach well enough. Do it again to give it a little bit more pressure. And then I've got 2 more here for the bottom, 1 right there. So you probably know that when you're using vellum, you can't put any kind of real adhesive on it. When you do, you'll be able to see it through. And I'm just going to show you that in a minute, because no matter how small those glue dots are, you can still see right through there. So I'm going to put this on top of my paper, center it on top of my designer paper, as centered as I can get it. And then I'm going to cover those up with a clear faceted gem. So they're about the same size, but I can cover the adhesive right up with a gem so that you won't even notice it. So they are all in place. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the front of my card, and I've already got dimensionals on the back of my designer paper. So I'll go ahead and pull those off. So make sure that I've got this going the right way, and I'm going to just lay that on top so I have a little bit of my Whisper White showing as a border. And that's our card. So that is everything for that one. It's got the silver. I'll just wipe that off. It had a little bit of embossing powder on it. Silver. I'll show it this way so that you can probably see it a little bit better. So I'm going to pull these other guys in, and I'd love for you to leave me a comment. Which one do you like the best? Do you like the silver we just did, the copper in the same color, or do you like the gold? You guys again next time. I will work out all my little techie glitches, and I'll be back again on Facebook Live. So have an awesome paper crafting day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.